All right, today we're talking with Marine Corps veteran Sonny Tai, CEO of Actuate. Sonny, you got a really interesting life story where you grew up and everything, and want to hear about what you did in the Marine Corps. So take us back and tell us where it all began.
Sounds good, Joe. So I was born in Taiwan. I grew up in South Africa, and my life story is a little bit crazy. My father passed away from asthma when he was 3 years old. Sorry, when I was 3 years old, not when he was 3 years old. Then he wouldn't be a father. Um, but yeah, the ambulance got stuck in traffic and didn't make it on time. So yeah, he passed away. So I was raised by a single mom. When I was 5 years old, I found that I had asthma as well. Had a really bad asthma attack. Went to the ICU and my oxygen mask and an IV in my veins. And my mom would tell me bedtime stories. And I don't remember any bedtime story she told me except for one. And she just saw something in the news and she wanted to repeat that story to me just to educate me on current affairs. And this was during the Persian Gulf War, the first one. And she said, once upon a time, there's a bad guy. His name is Hussein. And he invaded a little country called Kuwait because he was greedy. She's telling me all this in Mandarin, right? Because that's our native language in Taiwan. And she said the good guys, led by a person named Bush, came and saved Kuwait and kicked out Hussein's forces. And look, I'm 5 years old. And ever since then, I became obsessed with the concept of America. Um, so we ended up moving to South Africa when I was 7 years old with me, my mom, and my sister, in large part because Taiwan had really bad air quality, and South Africa was a place where really encouraged Taiwanese immigrants to come, and the quality of life was good, air quality was great, education was good. So my mom decided to go to South Africa to build a better life for us. We lived there for 6 years, and South Africa is great in many ways. It's a wonderful place to live, beautiful country, beautiful culture, but it also has one of the highest rates of violent crime in the entire world, up there with Mexico and Brazil.
Really?
So we had a family friend who was fatally shot in his own home. We had family friends who were robbed at gunpoint and carjacked. It's really not uncommon. So my mom decided, okay, well, the next leap of faith I'm going to take is try to come to the United States. So she ended up coming to the U.S., finding a job. Furniture company sponsored her to be a procurement manager. It paid $12 an hour on H-1B visa sponsorship, and we came. So at the time, I was 13 years old. Came to do the second half of eighth grade, roll into high school in the Chicago suburbs, and did high school here in the United States. And the way I found the Marine Corps was that I decided to skip physics class and go take something called ASVAB, which everybody listening to this podcast is probably familiar with. And look, I'm a Taiwanese immigrant, right? Standardized tests are a joke to me. ASVAB didn't even try, 96th percentile. Only reason it's not 99th is because there's a section on what's the color brake fluid or whatever, all the mechanical stuff. It's like, I'm a city boy. I've never seen it underneath the hood of a car in my life. So I just
Yeah.
like C right there. So probably got 100 and everything else. And a first recruiter to start blowing up my phone. I'll never forget his name, Staff Sergeant Monty A. France, former scout sniper. Um, and he was an expert at telling teenagers what they wanted to hear. Oh yeah, you will. Once you put the uniform on, women won't be able to resist you. Honor, courage, and commitment. Don't you want to serve your country? You're a stud already. I'll make you even more of a stud. All that stuff, right? So yeah, I bought it. I bought it. I enlisted in the Marine Corps. Went to Marine Corps Reserve so I can go to college at the same time. And when it came time to MOS selection, he said, "Hey, there's only 3 MOSs available to you. You could be an MBC defense specialist, motor vehicle mechanic, or motor vehicle operator." So I'm there like, "Hey, Staff Sergeant, I know what MBC defense is. I don't want to deal with poisonous gases. So how about motor vehicle operator? Can I drive tanks?" He says, "No, you can't drive tanks." I said, "How about like the Rangers in Black Hawk Down driving Humvees?" He said, "It's just like the Rangers in Black Hawk Down." So yeah, I enlisted as a 3531 motor vehicle operator. Got through MOS schools, honor grad, meritorious Lance Corporal. Showed up to my reserve unit and realized that it's nothing like that. All you do is PM vehicles all day, sweep and swab the deck, working parties. So that kicked off my Marine Corps career, and that's how I grew up.
Really got to question that recruiter. you practically maxed out the ASVAB, and he throws you into the motor T, huh?
I had a company commander. His name was Major Porter, later on Lieutenant Colonel, and he one day brought me into his office. And I don't think I was a very good motor T Marine, to be perfectly honest with you. And he said, "Hey, Corporal Tai, you're too smart for motor T, aren't you?" I don't know what to answer to that. I'm like,
Yeah, that sounds like a
I don't
trick.
know, sir. I don't think so. Yeah. So am I supposed to say yes or no? Like, I don't get it. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Those were three jobs that were available. I think at the time there was a lot of people enlisting. I wasn't qualified for any of the intel roles because I was on a green card and I was a U.S. citizen back then. So all the more desirable ones that require a high ASVAB score weren't offered. I mean, infantry wasn't even offered. To be honest with you, he said these are the three openings you can choose, and you got to pick one. So it is what it is.
Yeah, contrary to popular belief, getting infantry is not easy.
Yeah.
It's very sought after.
I know a lot of infantrymen and infantry officers, and some of them are some of the most impressive people I've met in my entire life. Now, don't get me wrong, I met the mouth breathers as well, right? But I feel like in the Marine Corps, infantry especially, is where you get the divergence, where you get the cream of the crop of the American population,
Mm-hmm.
and people who just honestly, for lack of a better phrase, like probably couldn't get great jobs elsewhere and decided to go in the Marine Corps, but they want to do something badass and go into infantry.
Yeah.
But regardless, I have profound respect for all infantrymen. But I've met some really talented people from the infantry.
True essence of leadership. Definitely an eclectic mix.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Some of the best philosophers are infantrymen.
Yeah, because when you've been through a combat situation as infantryman, and you've been through the apogee of human misery, I think that's when all your philosophical takes will start getting generated in your mind, whatever's up there, right? Nobody's driving a 7-ton truck or PMing a motor vehicle operator or motor vehicle mechanic or whatever, and start thinking about Kant and Rousseau and the meaning of life. But alas, I digress.
Yeah. Okay, so you were going to school while in the reserves. Where did this entrepreneurial streak come from?
So my mom went back to Taiwan from South Africa in 1996, and she comes back with a shiny new toy. It's a brand new Pentium 100 state-of-the-art computer with Windows 95. And those of us who are a little bit older, who have had the pleasure of using DOS and Windows 3.1, when Windows 95 came out with that new GUI, it was just like amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Fell in love with computers. Wanted to be like Bill Gates. I made a pact with my childhood friends in South Africa that we would get together and start a gaming company one day, like a Blizzard Entertainment, right? That never happened. I didn't even become a software engineer. But one of my best friends in South Africa became a software engineer. But that planted a seed in my mind. I wanted to start my own company one day. I've also always wanted to do something around social impact. Just growing up in South Africa, there's a huge, just like in the United States, but worse, huge disparity between the haves and have-nots. So just every day on our drive to school, you can see, quite frankly, the shanty towns, that are not too far away from the high income population centers where the white and Asian South Africans lived. So that always left an indelible impact on me. I've always wanted to do something that kind of made our society, made our world a little bit a better place. So that's what ultimately led me to Actuate eventually, sometime down the road. But definitely the seed was planted when I was like 10 years old.
Wow. Okay, so walk us through some of what did you just jump right into so your company Actuate, which has AI security systems where it allows security cameras to actually detect threats such as certain people carrying weapons and that kind of thing, and it's artificial intelligence. So did you actually jump right into that, or walk us through how you arrived at Actuate?
Yeah, so the second part of my story, which is not as interesting, is I ended up becoming a U.S. citizen in 2008, went to OCS, became a Marine Corps officer, deployed to Afghanistan, which is mostly a desk job on Camp Leatherneck. Then came back to the US in 2013, applied to business school, went to University of Chicago for my MBA, was a management consultant for a couple of years before I started Actuate. And what brought me to Actuate was after the Las Vegas shooting in late 2017, just one person with a double duffel bag full of rifles and bump stocks went and killed 58 people and shot another 500. And I just started doing some research on, whether or not we can use technology, not to solve the problem, because the problem is not going to be solved through technology, but at least to save lives when crisis situations happen. So what they teach you in the startup world is that, you need to do customer discovery. Before you even start building a product, talk to customers and find out what the pain points are, find out what the potential solutions might be from the customer's perspective. So talk to a ton of teachers, education administrators, law enforcement leaders, from patrol officer all the way up to deputy chief. I even would sit by Chicago Police Department officers on a train and say, hey, look, I got this idea. What do you think? Like, would this help you if you were in such a situation? And what I arrived at was that a lot of them came back and said, you know what, it'll be really cool if security cameras could automatically identify threats and provide us with real-time information. Because just like a Marine kicking a door down, going to a compound and not knowing what the other side is on the other side, some of these officers told me, they said, the most terrifying thing for us to do is to enter into a building knowing that there's an armed threat inside, but not knowing what the situation is. So after doing that research, also found that computer vision models have been outperforming human beings in terms of being able to identify objects, but nobody had built a credible product in terms of identifying gun threats and other types of security threats in existing security camera feeds. So I knew I wanted to build it, and I knew I had to put together a technical team. So I was super lucky that one of the first people I came across is my co-founder now, Ben Giomek, who had spent 5 years building AI for Microsoft before starting business school at University of Chicago, where I also went. So long story short is a 30-minute coffee chat turned into 3 hours, and we started working together in early 2018, and the rest is history. He's upstairs downstairs right now in the office, so we're still together today.
Really? So you yourself actually just kind of conjured up this idea in your head from all your previous experience and life experience and how you grew up and everything, and it just happened to run into the right guy and made it happen.
Yeah, I am not. I think in any tech startup, you need a selling co-founder, you need a building co-founder. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely not the building co-founder. I tried teaching myself computer programming, Delphi, Visual Basic when I was 14 years old, but I got distracted by other things. So my co-founder is the brains of the company. He's the one that builds the technology. It frees me up to go out there, shake hands, and kiss babies.
That's awesome. Well, hey, Sonny, hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Okay, back talking with Marine veteran Sonny Tai, CEO of Actuate. So, Sonny, you described, I want to drill into this one point. Some of the things we've been discussing in our mastermind, some of the things I've learned is in the entrepreneurial world myself. You described yourself, you came up with the idea, and you described yourself as the sales founder, and you have a, what's your partner? Would you coin him as the term?
The building co-founder, the builder. Yeah, the seller and the builder. Yeah,
seller and a builder. Like a lot of times in this entrepreneurial, like books and stuff, with discussions I've been involved in, we call it the visionary and the implementer. And if you're the one that comes up with the idea and you're great at selling the idea and talking it up, most of the time you need an implementer. You need implementers. And so you happen to run into the perfect implementer. And what I've discovered over time, especially in this entrepreneurial world, trying to solo entrepreneur, I'm a great visionary, but I'm not a good implementer. And I struggled with that for a long time because I thought, like you said, you tried to figure out computer programming. You realized it wasn't your thing. And I have the same problem. Like I can get into computer programming, but like computer programming for me was like basic Pascal, Fortran, going way back. I love that stuff, but I'm really more of a visionary and a big idea guy. I'm not a good implementer. And the thing that it took me a long time to realize is there are people that are phenomenal implementers, and they're not the big visionary types. They prefer to implement, and then you need to be paired up with these people that are great visionaries. So the fact that you two teamed up in business school and are making this happen is phenomenal.
Yeah, thanks so much. And I think that people tend to overvalue being a visionary a little bit. You ever see people's LinkedIn profiles like, I am a never trust someone when they say that they're a visionary, right? It doesn't mean anything. Like if somebody calls you a visionary, that's good to go. But if you call yourself a visionary, you're probably not a visionary.
You don't want to be a
Uh,
self-appointed visionary.
yeah. For me, look, I mean, I did come up with the idea. I was lucky enough that Ben bought into the idea. I was lucky enough that he shares, I think, our cultural and kind of values approach overlap by about 90%. So when you have somebody that's that capable of being by your side and kind of building this company together, that's a really good place to be. But I think it really just started in that just from day one, I valued someone like him, right?
Yeah.
When he expressed interest in working with me, I think a lot of founders would have been like, okay, well, it's my idea, right? So you're new, so you only get, even though you're a co-founder, you only get 15%, for example. Um, from day one, when we had a coffee chat at 30 minutes to 3 hours, I knew immediately. I was like, this guy knows all the things that I don't know. This guy can do all the things that I can't do. So I told him from day one, like 50-50, let's do this, right? I know it's my idea. I know I've been rolling out business plans and applying to startup pitch competitions and things like that for the first 4 months, but I can't do this without you. So let's just split evenly and have you in the decision-making process. Yeah, it was a bit of a gamble, but again, 100% of zero is zero, right?
Yeah.
But if you have somebody capable that you're in it together, you have the same stake together, and you have complementary skill sets, I think that works out really well.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Like Chris Ducker, Mr. Solopreneur guy, he had said several years ago, I was listening to him. He said that he discovered early on that he was a great builder. He could build a company from scratch and get it up to the point where it's almost self-sustaining, but he wasn't a good manager. He didn't like to manage things that already existed. And so when he realized that, whenever he got something up to where it was almost self-sustaining, he would bring in managers, run it, and then he would walk away or step aside and go back and start another one. And I've also talked about, like, the Mark Zuckerbergs and the Bill Gates and the Steve Jobs. It's very, very rare to have a founder walk through all the different steps of a company going
Yeah.
public and then getting very large. And if you're only good at one or two of those phases, there's like 4 or 5 phases. And they say that um, a company like Apple or Microsoft typically would have had 4 or 5 different CEOs before it finally got to the main stage.
Mhm.
So it's very rare to have a founder take it all the way through to the end like that. And if you fit one of those, like if you're the very beginning guy, or if you're the second and third step and you're not good at the other ones, that's okay. Because I think oftentimes we enter in this world of entrepreneurship, we think we're supposed to be good at all of it. But like you had, if you teamed up with the ideal partner, and you knew immediately, you recognized he had what you needed and what you didn't,
Yeah.
and then it just went from there.
I mean, that's why culture is the most important part of building a company. I know that sounds very shapeless and vague. Like, how do you define culture? I mean, culture is just, I think, if without reading the Merriam-Webster definition, it's just a set of traditions, practices, and values and beliefs that drive an organization, right? And I had one of our investors on the lease visit last Friday, and I was telling her, just bragging about our team, bragging about how good our team is. And I said, look, Annalise, we're going to continue to make tactical and strategic mistakes. And there are some people on our team who suck at certain things, but are really good at other things. And when you hire someone, you're never going to be able to get someone who is good at everything. Like, these people are just so rare and
Yeah.
don't really exist. but team members can cover for each other's execution weaknesses. One team member is very strong in one area, one team member is not as strong in another area. You can cover for each other. It's just like in the Marine Corps, right? Combined arms. Like a water purification specialist. It may not be as good in a fight on the ground kicking down doors, but good luck running a mission without potable water. Right? It's one example.
Yeah.
But what really the glue that brings everyone together is that from a values and culture perspective, you have to be on the same page. Because if you're not, you bring on the wrong people. Worse, you bring in the wrong leaders. That's just use a sports analogy. That could poison the locker room. That poison the locker room, poison the well, far more than if somebody doesn't deliver on a specific skill set.
Yeah.
So going back to your point about one founder taking a company from seed, pre-seed, or seed to IPO, yeah, I think that's relatively rare. But if you build a right culture around your company, even if you step aside, subsequent leaders should be executing under that same culture and should not be changing that culture. That company will continue to be successful.
Yeah. Now, you've obviously had a very interesting life. Born in Taiwan, grew up mostly in South Africa, then high school in the Chicago area, enlisted Marine officer. You had a wide, plus several degrees. You've got a wide range of experience and education. In the process of starting up, creating a startup and getting funding initially to get it going, how much of your military experience came into play, becoming successful and all that?
I think a little bit. If I said none, I'll be lying. If I said a lot, I'll be lying as well. I think what it taught me is to continue to put one foot in front of the other. It's like when you're on a 15-mile hump, right? You got freaking 100 pounds on your back. You're carrying, and plus you're carrying your 240 barrel and a freaking flak and Kevlar, all sorts of gear, and it's miserable. But you know that if you keep putting one foot in front of the other, you'll eventually get there. That's how it felt like fundraising was in the very beginning. I mean, I used to have my shoes soaked through, trudging through snow in Chicago to take angel investor meetings, just in the hopes that somebody would write us a $10,000 check.
Mm-hmm.
I've been laughed at. I went and visited a Northwestern professor. I won't drop her name, but she was running a VC in Chicago, and I'll never forget that I was telling her about this idea, and she laughed. She laughed like that's not viable. An angel investor was gracious enough to buy me lunch and give me some good advice, but he said, I will never invest in your company. And I'm not telling these stories to be kind of like, oh, talking about hustle porn or anything like that, but it's just something that every founder goes through, especially when you're kind of at the idea MVP stage. You haven't demonstrated that much traction yet. You haven't de-risked your business substantially for investors. And you may come up with an idea that's really new to the world. And they'll look at you with a skeptical eye because they can't make it better than everyone. So where I think the military experience is helpful is it definitely taught me resilience. It definitely taught me to be cool under pressure. My co-founder told me once that I'm always calm under pressure. I don't think that's true. I've lost it a couple of times, but generally cool under pressure, which is important. And generally carry yourself in a confident way. Right? I think as a Marine officer, you're taught certain elements of presentation and professionalism that come across well when you're presenting to people. And yeah, when you're pitching these early seed investors and angel investors, and you're building a company, but you don't have that much to show for yet, I think that really goes a long way.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us about Actuate and how the technology actually works.
So yeah, we build AI software that turns existing security cameras into smart cameras, and we identify threats ranging from, we use computer vision to identify threats ranging from gun threats, which means somebody pulls a gun out, the security forces get notified, intruders, loiterers, crowds. We just released slip and fall detection, which is especially helpful for property managers that are trying to mitigate liability risk. Hospitals and nursing homes also have slip and fall concerns. But really what we're looking to do is become the one-stop shop for using what's called video analytics in industry, which is using computer vision AI to enable existing security cameras to become smart cameras without having to install any additional hardware. So the idea is to get information to the right people at the right time to improve security and facilities response significantly from before.
Now, how are you able to use existing cameras to make this work?
Yeah, so we sample frames in a very bandwidth and compute efficient manner, and we send them up to the cloud where computer vision models sit. And yeah, we will just spin up EC2 instances on AWS and run all the compute on the cloud instead of having to install some sort of a smart camera or GPU on site, because that CapEx is something that a lot of customers are unwilling to make the investment in.
Yeah, because I was envisioning, when I first heard what your company does, envisioning, some of the scanners are using at airports and that kind of thing. But you're able to actually make this work with existing smart cameras.
Literally, if you bought a $100 camera on eBay or Amazon, installed it in your home and connected to the internet, we can turn that camera into a smart camera if you would like.
Okay, so you kind of explained how it worked on the technical side, but in layman's terms, how does it really work?
How does it really work in terms of the computer vision model, or in terms of the processes helping?
Is one of the things, can somebody detect, can some of the software actually detect firearms, weapons?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's our core competency.
Like if somebody's got one in their pocket or something, how does it detect that?
Well, if it's in a pocket and it's not showing, then it doesn't detect it, because it can only see, computer vision can only see what the camera can see, right? Because we sample frames from the camera and process it. And it's processed through what in data science is known as a convolution neural network, which basically means, and I'm not a technical person, so if I say something wrong, embarrass myself, I apologize, but it basically mathematically calculates the probability of certain objects existing in images and video through complicated series of matrix algebra calculations. So once it calculates that a probability of a certain object, in this case, let's say a pistol, hits a certain threshold, then it sends back a notification, and we can send a notification any way you want. A lot of customers have something called a security operations center, which means they have a control room with big screen TVs pulled up, cameras pulled up, but it's impossible for the employees in there to monitor all the cameras, and we can trigger an alarm so that they can take a look and say, hey, is this a real weapon? If so, we can execute our defensive evacuation measures. If not, then we dismiss it and it's not a threat.
So let's say cameras see somebody coming in a hotel lobby, they've got a pistol hidden somewhere. It doesn't see it. They get on the elevator, it still doesn't get seen. They're walking down the hallway and they're going to a particular room. At that point, they pull out the pistol as they approach the door. Then the hallway cameras pick it up and sound the alarm, because at that point it's obvious when the guy pulls it out. But
yeah, it wouldn't sound a public alarm. It would alarm the security operations center or security staff, because AI is not perfect. There are false positives. Our false positive rate, we believe, is by far the industry low in production deployments. I mean, our longest tenured customer has been with us for, I think, 2.5 years, and they get something like one false positive per 45 cameras per month, something really, really low. So, to them, it's not a nuisance to say, okay, well, that's not a real threat, and we'll dismiss that and not execute our defensive evacuation measures. Last thing you want to do is alert the entire building, all the customers, if there's a false positive. So there's always a human in the loop doing the verification.
Yeah. Can you give some specific examples of whether it's fall detection or, maybe not something quite so sexy as detecting a weapon or something, but some specific instances where software's been instrumental?
Our most common use case is just regular people in vehicle detection, and just identify people in vehicles where they're not supposed to be. So there's a type of company called a remote guarding company. And it runs something called a central station. And again, it's a commercial version of a security operations center. Big screen TV is pulled up, but they monitor cameras on behalf of end users. They monitor cameras on behalf of customers, like like hospitals, like construction sites, like property managers, like schools, so on and so forth. And usually these operations are after business hours. So let's say 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. And they'll do this monitoring to make sure that there's no trespassers where they're not supposed to be. Another example, we just using loitering detection at some low-income housing properties. A big issue that comes up with a lot of these properties is that there's usually nefarious activity happening in stairwells because people feel like they're not being seen there. So, but also if somebody just walks up the stairs, you don't want to trigger an alarm, right, or identify them. But if somebody's loitering in stairwells, it's often something bad's happening. So we've used our AI to catch live drug deals. We caught public indecency of various forms, and other types of kind of nefarious activity in our stairwells just using our AI. Help the security team respond to these incidents.
Because when you have this many cameras covering so many different things, the human eye just can't.
Exactly.
You have to have one person covering each camera to really catch everything.
Yeah, and that's why by using AI, you can narrow that down. You can use fewer people to monitor more cameras effectively to identify where the anomalies are that require security or facilities response.
Yeah. So can you share what kind of numbers can you share with this? Where's Actuate right now, and where do you see it going here in the near future?
Yeah, we're currently deployed about 12,000 cameras, and we have a little bit under $5 million in annual revenues, and we're growing super rapidly. 2 months ago we just closed an $8 million Series A venture financing round. And that's going to enable us to really deepen our competitive moat in terms of hiring the critical technical talent that we need. We just brought in a super talented engineering manager who graduated from Georgia Tech, and we hired a couple of new salespeople. A salesperson we just extended an offer to was a Cornell grad. Another salesperson that just started 2 months ago was an Army Ranger who graduated from West Point as a Rice MBA. So just continue to bring in that top tier talent so we continue to grow our company, but most importantly, provide value for our customers and help make our communities a little bit safer.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, hey, Sonny, how do we find Actuate and get more information on it?
Yeah, our website is www.actuate.ai, and my email address is Sonny, SONNY, @actuate.ai.
That's awesome. And I do want to give you the final word. If you're talking to somebody that's still in the military on their way out, just got out recently, and they're looking to get into the startup arena, get into entrepreneurship, what kind of advice comes to mind?
Wow, that's really broad. I mean, you could run a whole another podcast just talk about that topic.
Oh, yeah.
I think if I were to distill it down, is be decisive, right? When I was in the Marine Corps, I'll never forget in the basic school, I almost failed in evolution because the instructor said, "Hey, Lieutenant Tai wasn't decisive enough in his actions," and I think ever since then I took it a little too far in terms of. In certain things in life, I become impulsive. So there's a happy balance there. But if you feel like you have an idea that you think can be impactful, you've done your due diligence and validation, go out there and do it. This is probably the best time to raise money in recent history. A lot of people have made a lot of money in real estate, in the stock market, whatever the case may be, and they're looking to deploy that capital. And part of deploying that capital is they're willing to take higher risk bets. They're willing to invest in startups, right? So put the right team together, attract talented people to come and work with you, and go and build your company. Because this is not a bad time to be doing so.
Awesome. Well, hey, Sonny, thanks for sharing your great story, phenomenal personal story in addition to the military, and looking forward to seeing your future success in the startup and entrepreneurial world.
Thank you, Joe.
All right. These two Marines are asking my